Welcome to the Grace to Lead podcast. I'm Belinda Gaston, your host, and listen, if you are a Christian woman who leads at work, in your own business, or even in ministry, you are in the right place. Here you'll find practical advice and encouragement as you lead through real conversations that will challenge and inspire you. So join me on this journey to becoming better leaders God's way. Are you ready? Let the journey begin. Welcome to the Grace to Lead podcast. I am Belinda Gaston, your host, and listen, this is a very special episode. This is our last episode of the first season. Now, before you go crazy here, we are coming back with our season 2, Bigger and Better, but this is a celebration, y'all. Because I started this podcast really being obedient to God, not knowing what I've been doing and trying to figure all of these things out. And God has just placed some great people in my life to help support me. Those of you who are my listeners who've been consistently listening, you've given me feedback, and I'm going to take that feedback and make things better for the second season. But this is episode 20 of the Grace to Lead podcast. And in our 20 episodes, we have had, at least as of today of this recording, so by the time this airs, this number may have changed, but we have had 600 downloads, 106 cities in 3 countries across this world. And I, for one, am grateful. I am so excited. And so thank you for all of you who have supported me and the Grace to Lead podcast. And today, I think it's only fitting that I have someone special as my final guest for this season. This woman has been instrumental in coaching me through the podcast experience. And so today we're not only going to talk to her about kind of how she supported me, but also she is the ultimate strategist, and she is great at helping folks get from idea to strategy and implementation. And so I am excited to have her. Please welcome Britt Knight to the show. Now, let me tell you about Britt before I welcome her. Listen, Britt is a digital coach. She's a speaker. She's an influencer. She is the queen of strategy, and she has a passion for guiding individuals in their unique social media journey. Since about 2016, she's immersed herself in the online world and teaching and blogging and podcast hosting and community building, reaching over 100,000 people across social media platforms, which is amazing. As an influencer, she's had the opportunity to collaborate with multi-million-dollar beauty brands such as Anastasia Beverly Hills, Juvia's Place, CoverGirl, and many more. From green rooms to Graceland, she's assisted behind the scenes for stage and video productions, transitioning from being the teacher to becoming the student and cherishing every lesson along the way. Now she is taking all of those things and the skills and tools and tips that she's acquired through her many years of experience, and she's taken them into the coaching space. And she's had the privilege of really coaching a diverse range of clients. She has coached everyone from athletes, mindset coaches, real estate investors, food bloggers, and cosmetic brand owners. Her approach is really about creating a tailored path that aligns with your vision and developing custom plans that fit you. That for my listeners, that's the part that was most beneficial to me. I didn't have to do what everyone else is doing. So now, Grace to Lead listeners, if you would do me a favor and virtually welcome my coach, my friend, my prayer partner, my oh my goodness, my strategizer, queen of strategies here, Miss Britt Knight, to the Grace to Lead podcast. Welcome, Britt.
Hello. I have been behaving so much and just trying to keep like all my sounds and the things to myself. But hey, thank you so much for having me on here. And I've been just like silently clapping with everything that you've been accomplishing. So thank you for having me on here. I'm so excited.
I am excited too. And I think if you would have asked me in April, or I think we started our process actually in February, thinking through like, I think I want to do this podcast. This is what God has put in my heart. I don't know anything about this space. I don't want to necessarily do this, but I feel led to do this till now. I just am amazed at what God is doing. Here's the thing, leaders. We talked about this in the very beginning. As a leader, your influence matters. And for me, being able to influence 600 people, whether they are influenced in the space of confidence in their leadership, isolation in their leadership, all of the things, leading well, all of those topics that we talked about this season, for me, that matters. And so, Britt, you came along when I had this idea, and you encouraged me and you got me started. And listen, it for my listeners, it was literally just an idea. I think I had a title. Did I have a title yet? I don't know if I even had a title, Britt. Did I?
Not officially, but when we had the conversations, grace was something that I know that was very much on your heart, and leading was something also very much on your heart. And like, you came up with the idea of grace to lead. And I said, oh, that's it. That's magnifies like exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah. So let's kind of start at the beginning here. In the coaching space, people come to you with the goal, right? And they say, this is what I want to do. And sometimes it's hard to get started. And so I'd love for us to start there. Can you start with giving folks an idea of where they should start if they have a great idea? You have a great idea for a podcast or business or whatever leaders do, all the things in leaders' hands. Where should they start, Britt?
I would say honestly, the first thing, it sounds really simple, is literally to write it out. Like, I'm a big fan of brain dumping and mind mapping, because I think sometimes, especially when you are someone that is creative or you get those kind of ideas, the idea can be so large. It kind of seems like, okay, I have this idea, but I have no idea how in the world I could pull it off. Or you can see it going in so many different routes and directions. So I would say the first thing to do is, when you get that kind of idea, just grab a notebook, grab your notes out of your phone, voice memo it, anything that you can do to capture it, write it down, that everything that's coming to your mind in that moment, get it out, so that when you have everything out, you can look at it or you can listen to it, and you can actually see, okay, what are the things in this moment that I actually have the ability to do? Like, what are the things that I'm writing down that are really speaking to me the most? Because sometimes we can have a lot of things that we want to do, but of course we can't do all the things in that exact moment. So what are the pieces for me that are most important, that stick out to me, and that I think the people that I'm trying to talk to are going to really need? And then from there, we can start pulling and we can start building. And then those other things can maybe come on eventually, but let's start with the core of it, and then we can develop it from there.
That's a great point. I think in this process, a lot of times, particularly if you have a great idea, you you have so much in your head, and it's like you feel overwhelmed. And I think that might be part of why people never really move. And so your first tip for us is to write it down. Is there another tip that you can share for when you have this great idea? Where should you start?
I would say start to research, honestly. And I know that's kind of like a dirty word sometimes, like, because it takes it takes work. But if there's something that you're wanting to do, see if there's things out there that are already kind of similar to it. Find out what you like about what you see there. Like, what would you tweak? Like, what would you do differently? That would be something else that I would do as well.
Yeah, those are great strategies. And so we write it down, we do our research, we finalize kind of this is where we want to do. And then the next thing is really our implementation of it. And I think this is where people fall short. And so when we start thinking about how we go from this, I have the idea to implementation, are there things we need to keep in mind as we go from idea to implementation?
Yeah. So one of the ways that I like to look at it, because I say I try to create a roadmap for you. So, like, you have the idea, you have the vision of it. So then it's about really getting kind of clarity behind it. Like, what are the solutions that you want to achieve for the people that you're reaching to? What is the mission for it? What are the values? Again, who is it actually that you are trying to reach if you don't know, and why? How do you want to show up for it? Are you someone that would prefer to present as a speaker, someone that would show up as a community builder on in online spaces? How do you want to show up? So get clarity on that first, and then the strategies can start coming behind it. And that could be like, okay, well, what are my goals going to be? Like, what do I want to talk about? What are the themes? What are the topics for it? Like, how do I then begin to engage with people? Like, what is my content going to look like? How will I show up? Where will I show up? Like, it's so many different kind of things. And I think again that where it can start leading into the overwhelm. So the biggest thing I would say is, when it comes to doing that, really just take it piece by piece. Don't allow yourself to get overwhelmed. And that's one of the things that we were working on, because I think we spent the first maybe 3 sessions just really just defining, like, okay, what is this? Like, because we were talking about, first we were talking about the podcast wasn't even the first thing, because we were talking about potentially doing like 5-minute live sections. And then we were talking about, okay, well, maybe we can start doing the blogging again. And, and there was a few different ways that we approached it until we realized, okay, maybe the podcast actually is the way to do it, because you have a lot to say. You're very articulate. You pull on things really well. You have great conversations, and you're very passionate about it. And you have the people in your surroundings that you can pull to get that information and have those kind of conversations. So yeah, it is. But first things first, you have to have clarity.
And I think that, that's the value, I think, of having a coach. And we'll maybe talk about some ways that people can be supported through this process. But sometimes it's difficult for us to get clarity on our own. And you go through one path and then it's not working. And you're like, oh, I have to start over. Where if you had that clarity from the beginning, maybe your road would be a little easier. Can we talk a little bit about some of the pitfalls? Because you said something that really stuck out with me, and that's the feeling of overwhelm. And I say, for most of us who are starting something new, whether they are starting a new leadership position or starting a new business or a new ministry, or something new, some kind of new effort, I would say that overwhelm, particularly for women who lead, is probably one of the biggest hurdles to overcome. And so there are some things I'm sure that lead to that. And you said that lack of clarity is one of them, but are there other pitfalls to our implementation as we go from idea to strategy to implementation? Are there other things that you can think of that would be considered pitfalls or challenges that we have to overcome in this process?
Yeah, yeah. So I'm gonna go just a little biblical for a second, if that's okay.
That's fine. That's
If
fine
that's
with me.
okay. So the way that it started kind of coming to me, right, was I was thinking about the disciples, like after they had, fed the masses, and they were getting in the boat, and they were going to be crossing over to go to the next place that Jesus had told them to go to. And as they were there, they faced the storm, and there was like all these, like just the waves and the wind, and just all this that was surrounding them, and they were trying to follow these directions that were given to them. But it's like, how do they keep pushing forward? And as I was thinking about that, and then I was reading on it, the Father gave me this download of waves, and as an acronym. So the things that can hinder us, especially as we are trying to push forward, like we don't want to stop, but there's hindrances, like there's pitfalls, there's obstacles in the way. So for W, it would be that there's wavering. So like, where we may not necessarily be entirely sure, like, okay, well, I'm not sure how to do this. Like, oh, I think I've seen other people doing things like this before. Like, I don't know if this is really the right decision for me. Should I even be doing something like this? And we begin to waver, and that can hold us back. And then there's alienation, where maybe we have tried to do these types of things before on our own, or we've stepped out in other ventures, and we either were hurt by someone. We were let down by someone. We were on a team and it felt like, oh, I'm the only one that's holding everything up and I don't want to go through that again. Or, it could be anything that separates us and makes us feel that we have to do it on our own. And the thought of doing that is just too much. And we just step away. It's like, I can't do that again. Then there's vacillation. And I feel like for me, this is the biggest one because it's like I have so many ideas. I could do this. I could do this. Maybe I could do this. And again, this is where the clarity comes from. I could be doing this. I could be doing this. I could be doing this. Well, but maybe if I started doing this, but well, what's going to happen? But then how am I going to be able to reach these people? Because I need, and you have like all these thoughts that continue to like just kind of go through your mind. And there's so much. It's just like I can't think about this right now. I can't do this. And instead of picking like the one thing, because sometimes I feel like when we pick the one thing, we feel like we're not doing enough because we have so many things that we want to get done. Like, no, I can't focus on just this one because I have this whole thing I got to get taken care of. So there's
Yes, I think I think we need to pause for a second because
okay.
this is a lot of wisdom here. I want to,
Sorry.
oh my goodness, no, 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 this is really good. This is why you're the greatest. So I want to go back and unpack a couple of the first ones before we get into the E. So we talked
Okay.
about wavering and what happens, and that really is kind of tied to clarity. And so I think for our listeners, one of the keys it sounds like here is clarity, clarity, clarity. Whether you do that by yourself or whether you do that, in your own personal time or whether you get a coach, clarity is important. And then you talked about alienation, and we talked about isolation and loneliness in leading. And I think it's important to pull that out, Britt, because whenever you do something new, it can make you feel like you're the only one. And so that the alienation is big. But this last one of vacillation, Britt, oh my goodness.
As I
What
said,
is
like
it that you think? Why do you think that is? I mean, we're going to get to the listeners, I promise. But I want to pause. I feel like we need to pause for a minute because vacillation is something that happens. And you said it's like you feel like, but it's not enough. Like, where do you think that comes from for women who lead, where it's, I just can't do this. I can't put my focus on this one thing. I have to multitask. I have to do all these things. Where do you think that comes from?
the thing that keeps screaming to me is just perfectionism. It's perfectionism. I think we really do. We have this vision of what it is that we're wanting to, we're wanting to achieve, what we're wanting to build. We're thinking about like all these people that we want to help. And it's kind of like, well, if I don't do this right now, like how am I going to get that? Like we put this pressure on us that wasn't intended to, that wasn't intended to be there. And I think sometimes like we just kind of feel like if we're not, and again, maybe this is just my thoughts. I'm going to school to be a Christian counselor, but this is yeah, you get it. But I don't know. I just feel like sometimes we just don't think that the little things are enough. But like what is the verse?
Don't despise.
Don't despise yeah. Like we're always told don't despise small beginnings. And I mean, if it's in the word, then there's a reason why, because it's something that we do deal with. Like we think that if it's small, then we're never going to see the fruit from it. Like if we plant the seed, we're never going to see it actually grow, or we know eventually we will see it grow. But like maybe don't have the patience to see the fruition of it. So I don't know, maybe that's why like it's the little things sometimes just aren't enough where it's like we want to actually see the results of all the work that we're putting in.
Yeah, yeah. Perfectionism. That's good. So we were talking about waves. You said the W was for wavering, the A is for alienation, the V is for vacillation. Now let's get to this E. So what does that stand for?
Gotcha. Okay, so the E is error and feel like we're going to get into it and we're gonna mess up. we're going to do it wrong. We're going to think about the mistakes that we made in the past, not because of anybody else, just the mistakes that we made. We're going to think about the way that we tried before and it failed. Maybe the way that we tried to do something and the people around us made us feel bad. It's like, see, I told you. I told you what was going to happen if you try to do this. Maybe just feeling that I should be doing this. I should be doing this, but it's not working right. It's not, the people aren't coming. The numbers aren't where they're supposed to be. Like, so I must be doing something wrong. I see how they're doing this. So if they're doing it, I'm not understanding. Maybe this isn't what I'm supposed to be doing right now. So I think that's another factor of it. There's this fear of dropping the ball, the fear of not being successful, the fear of like, I'm going to start helping these people, but I'm not going to be able to maintain it and I'm going to drop it. The fear that I'm not going to be able to steward this well enough. So I'm not even going to put that responsibility on me. And I'm just going to step away and I'll let somebody else take care of it. So yeah, so wavering, alienation, vacillation, and error.
I'm pausing intentionally because I think that you've hit some things that we all experience in our leadership journey, whether we're starting something new or whether we're going throughout our routine, for lack of a better term, leadership experiences. And I think when you have an idea and you're excited about it and you want to implement it, it's really easy to fall into one of these spaces and then just stay there. So I am grateful that you shared that. So the the WAVE acronym, I think, is something that is very valuable that we can take with us. And so that's about showing up for yourself. It's about making sure that you have things in place to keep you from blocking in this space. And I'll just share transparently, and I would love for you to share a time when you may have dealt with this, Britt. But I remember a point in my podcast journey in this first season where I was really excited because I think I had 150 downloads, right? I was so excited. And I shared that with someone, and they said, well, that's really small. You know, the top podcasts have thousands and thousands and thousands of downloads. I mean, they get 2,500 downloads in a week. You're not, that's really, really small. And I almost felt like, well, gosh, there's nothing. And I stopped talking about the numbers. I literally would get the reports and just stop talking about it. And I had a session with you where we were kind of going through planning for the rest of I think it was towards my last session with you. And we were planning we were the halfway mark. And I said, yeah, I've reached this number of people. And you were so excited. You were like, oh my gosh, that's so great. Belinda, that's great. I mean, the way you were cheering, I was like, you can guess it's not thousands. And I don't know if you even remember saying this, but what you said to me is that's if you imagine that being in a room, that's like 150 people in a room. And I thought, wow. Wow. Do you remember saying that to me?
I vaguely remember that, but I was like, wow, that's good.
It's like it's essentially as if there were 150 people in the room and they heard something and listened all the way through, because that's the other thing. It's listening all the way through for 30 or 40 minutes to find value in what was said. And so I think when it comes to even this concept of errors, it's as if we are focused on making those small beginnings, oh, it's terrible, it's not enough, without really taking it into perspective. That's 150 people more than I would have been able to reach on my own in another way, right? And so when I say I'm excited about where we are right now, and again, this episode hasn't aired, maybe that'll get us a few more folks. It's because I know that the impact matters, right? Um, and so, Britt, can you share? Because you're the extraordinaire here. You're the strategy extraordinaire. I mean, you know how to do this. You know the mechanics behind it. You've helped with brands from cosmetics to athletics. Have you ever personally had a time, and please only share what you're comfortable with, but have you personally had a time where you experienced any one of these in your WAVE acronym? And if so, can you tell us how you overcame that, how you moved forward?
Oh, continuously. Continuously. Honestly, I have been in it for the last probably like I want to say the last several months, but maybe like the last year, because what I do now, because you read my bio, like I was in a completely different area, different industry. I was doing things with beauty and the lives, teaching, doing all the things, and I was doing, really, really well with that. And so when I made this shift to actually go into like the coaching, and I do, the ministry aspect of as well, it was different for me, and people were seeing me in this new light, and they were seeing me speak differently, speaking about things differently. I wasn't as vulnerable and transparent on the other side of things as I was now. And because people began to see me speaking in a different way, of course, I mean, some people understood, some people didn't, and that was great, and that was something else that I had to learn how to accept. But it also, with that came the well-intentioned wisdom of how I should be moving. And there would be people that would give advice about, oh, maybe you should do this. Well, if you're doing social media, maybe you should be doing this. You should be doing, maybe you should go into marketing. Maybe you should go into management. Maybe you should be doing this. And to me, I knew, I was like, well, I don't really feel like, one, that I have the capacity to do that. One, I don't think that I would really enjoy it. Like, yes, it's something that technically I could do, but is it something that I want to do? No. But I didn't understand, and it sounds silly, but I didn't understand that I had the choice to say no. And so I would take on everybody's idea. So that was, for me, was the vacillation. I was like, okay, well, I I could be doing this. Well, maybe let me create a plan for how this would look, because I'm really good at doing things like that too, like creating ideas, creating plans, like structuring out the way it could look, like creating like packages and all the different type of things. So I could do it. And I think that's another thing really quick as well. I think sometimes because we think we can do it, it's what we should be doing. It's what we should be doing in that moment. But it's not what I really wanted to do, but I was kind of in this mode of, well, if they think I can do it, and I know that I can do it, maybe I should be doing it. So for me, it took learning how to say, no, what do I have the capacity for? What do I have the actual drive and passion for? If I do this for someone, am I going to be able to do this for the long run? Is it something that I could see myself doing for the long run? Or would I tire out, burn out, and again, with that stewardship, not steward it? So for me, that's what it is, and that's what I've been dealing with. I've gotten to the point now where I have the clarity on who it is that I want to talk to when it comes in this capacity, who it is that I want to talk to, who my ideal like clientele, like, or your, what do you say, your avatars, like all the business lingo. Like I have an understanding of that, but I understand also why it is that I want to help them. And I think by understanding that, that helped me to move past those obstacles. And so now, if an opportunity presents itself, and maybe it's something in line with what I used to do, I know that, thank you, but that's not for me anymore, or thank you, that's not where I am anymore. Or if someone wants to ask me something that is within the online realm, but it's not something that I particularly work in, I can say, I appreciate the thought. Thank you for considering, but that's not something that I do right now, and maybe I can refer to someone else. So I think, again, it's back to clarity again. You have to have the clarity and understanding what it is that you want to do, what you have the passion to do, what you have the capacity to do. And I think once you understand those things, that will help to move it through. I do have another wave, but I can give it to you at a later moment. And that actually, it fits into like moving past the obstacles into moving forward.
I would love to hear the second wave that you have as well. This idea of I think you called it well-intentioned wisdom
Mhm.
is something that I think we can really get caught up in receiving other people's advice, especially if it's someone that we admire, they have experience in a particular area, they know us well, air quote, know us well. It's easy for us to yield to their well intentioned wisdom. And what I hear you saying is no, you don't have to do that. You can receive that and maybe park it for another time. But what is it that God is telling you to do? What is it that you have the capacity to do? And what is your passion and purpose in this moment? You may be really good at writing stories, but right now your passion could be in coaching other people and writing their story, right? And so you can somebody would come along and say, hey, you need to get those stories written because those can be monetized really easily, and you're thinking, oh well, this is a good, yeah, I should do that. Or would you follow your passion and help other people? And I think that that's a really good wisdom nugget for our listeners. And then the other thing is just recognizing that you can be good at something, but it may not be what you're supposed to be doing in this season. That's a part of the stretching and the growing process. So I would love for you to tell us the second wave. So give us a second wave, Britt. So the first wave was about overcoming the obstacles with implementation. You talked about wavering, you talked about alienation, vacillation, and error. What's the second wave you want to share with us?
Okay. So, and it's funny with after we've just had this conversation, the first one is actually wisdom. And it's what is seeking the wisdom of the Father. And then also, I'm not saying that we cannot go to people for wisdom because the Bible speaks so much about wisdom and counsel, and going to people. So I think with wisdom, it's about knowing who you trust, going to them, letting them know, hey, these are my thoughts, these are my frustrations, this is what I'm working on right now. What do you think? This is where I'm stuck. And going to them, receiving the wisdom, and as you said, then you have to make the choice. You have to make the decision. Okay, is this something that I am going to receive? Is this something that is a well-intentioned wisdom? Is this something that I can use to implement right now? Is this something that I may not be able to actually implement at the time? But as you said, I can write it down. I can put it on the shelf. So seek out wisdom when you are stuck, when you're facing those hindrances. The next one is action. How can you take action in this moment? It doesn't have to be a big picture action. It doesn't have to go into that, okay, I've got this huge thing I want to do. Like, let me jump on like 50 million things. Let me write down a list of 20 things I can take care of right now. Sometimes a single action is all you need. It's like a single phone call. Like I said, the research, looking to see how you can begin. How is something structured? Okay, if you're wanting to start a business, okay, what does getting an LLC look like? What does it require? Who are coaches that focus on this particular thing? So yeah, so the second one is taking action. The third one is the vision. And that really is like, what is the vision that you have? What does it look like? And I think it's important to understand the vision because, again, sometimes you can be someone that gets a vision, and as you are thinking about it, you see like all these sprouts starting to starting to shoot out from it, and you see all these different things that the vision that you have initially, what it could become. So then instead of focusing on this, you start focusing on this and start focusing on this. No, let's begin with where you have. Let's begin with that idea. And then from there, if it grows, if we start seeing the blooms, that's amazing. That's wonderful. I'm happy for you. But you're not going to get the sprouts without the vine. Okay. So let's start there first. And then the third one is engage. Are there communities that have similar interests to you, where you can see how people are communicating about the things that you're interested in? How can you begin to engage? So, and this is a big thing with the alienation, so you don't feel like you are alone. Are there mentorship groups? Are there communities out there? What are the ways that you can begin to engage so you're not putting yourself in this little box all by yourself, but you're like that you're expanding and reaching out. So that's the second wave.
Thank you for sharing that. I think both waves are exactly what we need as we think about going from an idea, a creative idea, into implementation and making that thing a reality. So thank you, thank you, thank you for sharing that. Before we move on, I just want to know if there's any final thoughts that you have as we've had this has been an amazing conversation, but are there any final thoughts you want to give our listeners on moving from idea into implementation or overcoming roadblocks in implementation?
Um, yeah, I mean, honestly, I would say that it's so cliche, like, I almost hesitate saying it, but in whatever you choose to do, just do it in a way that is authentic to you, because oftentimes I feel like we see the way that it is done in a way that is successful, in a way that gets the numbers, in a way that it gets the views and all those things, and we seek to imitate it or to replicate it, not get inspiration from it to see how you would do it, but literally to go in and say, okay, well, I'm going to do it this way because that's how people seem to resonate. This is what they seem to go to. So do it authentically. Truly, I mentioned it earlier, but make sure that as you are seeking to move from strategy to implementation, that what you are moving towards, you have a passion for. It's not something that you are just kind of like, oh yeah, I could do this. Because yeah, you could do it, but how long are you gonna do it? Is it something that you wake up wanting to do? Is it something that you wake up to and you're like, and you get excited about it? This is something that you have a notebook full of just kind of different ideas and mind maps and things like that. Do you have like the passion and the strategy? I mean, do you have the passion and the desire to actually do this? And then why? Understanding the whys behind it, it's so important. It's so important because you want to make sure that you're doing it for purpose. I feel like so often people get into something either because they think it's the popular thing to do. It's a easy way to monetize. It will bring the followers in. It can give you a good recognizable name and brand. But yeah, I just think it's so important to understand the why, because when you do that, it will keep you from straying off course.
I think that that is where we'll end this conversation. Britt, it's thank you so much for sharing your wisdom. It has been amazing. I know our listeners want to know what you're up to and how to reach you and all of the things. So can you share, anything you'd like us to know about what you're doing as well as how people can reach you?
Yeah, so I can be reached on my website. It is authentically-brit.com. That's where you can find me to do coaching. I do one-on-one coaching. I also do what's called a meetup. I haven't done them for a while, but I'm going to be starting those back up again. And the meetup is where once a month we get together, and it's a group of about 5 to 6 of us. And if there's something that you're working on, that you're stuck, that you need breakthrough, that you need clarity on, we work in sessions that go from about 3 to 4 hours at a time. We figure out what the block is. We do actual work while we're in there. We break, we come back, we do all the things. So that is something that I do as well. And also because I'm so passionate about seeing people get away from that place of being stuck, because there's so much good that we can do if we can just get past that block. So another way that I have started to begin to push people is actually just making the resource available so they can push. So locally in my area, if you're in the Louisville, Kentucky area or Southern Indiana area, I have actually opened up a content creation studio. You can use it for podcasting. You can use it for team meetings, for client meetings. You can do it for live streaming. If you're a photographer, it has backdrops that you can do photography in, product shots. Like, as many things as I can think of off the top of my head that you would need to do content creation for. The space is available. So yeah, those are the things that I am doing right now. And I'm so excited. Thank you for having me on here again. I really
Thank
appreciate
you for being my partner. For our listeners, all of the information that Britt just shared, I will put in the show's notes in the description box under the episode, so you'll be able to get those. And listen, Britt, I just have to say publicly that, and I am not going to cry. See, I'm looking away from you. Britt, I have to say publicly that the Grace to Lead podcast would not exist had God not partnered us together, because it really was this idea I felt led to do. I wasn't quite sure if this was it. And you walked with me, held my hand, and took me through all of the waves, the wave one and wave two, to get to a place where I was able to do what I believe I'm supposed to do. And I just want to publicly thank you for being my coach in this space. I could not have done it without you. And for our listeners, you need a Brit in your life. If you got an idea, you need a Brit in your life. Now, I'm plugging Brit, but there are other people out there, I'm sure, that can help you. But Brit has been able to help me get to the place that God intended me to be, and done so without judgment, and allowed me to be able to be authentically me. And so thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Britt. Thank you. Thank you.
Sure. Absolutely. I'm so proud of you. I'm so proud of you.
So let's just give one big again celebration for season one ending. Woo, 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 woo.
Yeah.
We are so excited. Thank you, thank you, thank you for all of you who have listened. We will be back. Please make sure that you are staying in touch. I will have information on how you can sign up for our mailing list so you can get all of the updates. We won't have podcast episodes, but I will be sharing a few things over the next few weeks for you to kind of keep you in the reminder of Grace to Lead. And until we hear each other talk again, you listen again, you tune in again, remember that indeed you are Grace to Lead. Thank you so much for your support. Have a wonderful week. Bye bye.